All righty. Welcome back to Thinking Outside the Bank, where we highlight investors and visionaries building businesses that matter, not only using creative finance, but also getting creative and thinking outside the box when life throws you challenges. Today, I'm joined by Jennifer Breitbach, an incredible integrator and operator helping drive projects across RV parks, co living, and transitional housing, all with a mission to create spaces that are both profitable and deeply purposeful. We're diving into what it takes to actually build the machine behind the vision. So, Jen, thank you for being a guest. Welcome.
Thank you
Yeah, excited to
for
have you
having me.
today. Excited to talk to you some more and kind of get down to the nitty gritty. What I think not a lot of people know, and everybody thinks of the visionaries, right? But not a lot of people think of the integrator. And to me, that's the brains behind the visionary, or not necessarily the brains, but the person who actually gets stuff done. So I want to spend some time talking to you about that today.
Awesome. Let's
Um,
do it.
Before I get into some of my questions, what I'd love for you to do and share with a little bit of listeners, just a little bit of your history and kind of how you got into real estate and a little bit about you and kind of your history.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so thanks for having me on. I I'm actually my degree is in electrical engineering, but I never was an electrical engineer. I did a little bit of work in the field doing repair on electronics, but then I went full time into the Army National Guard. I was in the Army National Guard through college. I got commissioned as an officer, and then I ended up going out after about 10 years in after my first deployment. I ended up going full time. So I became an operations. I was in operations for 10 years, HR officer and then logistics. And when I got out of the National Guard, I became a program manager for an engineering company. So we design and build mixers just here in Butte, Montana, but sold products across the whole world. And so, deeply, systems and processes, I set up a lot of, implemented a lot of systems and processes in that job. It's a very young company, and very small company. So, that's where I've gotten my background to be able to do what I'm doing now.
I love that. And that's truly something I didn't know. I didn't know a whole lot about your background. I did know, I think the engineer part, I learned when we were in Scottsdale, which was kind of interesting. That was my first degree for 2.5 years at University of Central Florida before transitioning to healthcare of all things, which is what I've done. So it's really interesting to hear your story, and kind of starting to unpeel the layers of the onion, so to speak, for how you've gotten your integrator superpowers. And that's what I want to kind of dive into first is you've been highlighted as, an incredible integrator and part of an awesome team. I know you're visionary. I know some of the people on your team. I had the pleasure of spending some time with you all again in Scottsdale and getting to know you some more. But to me, an integrator is someone who actually makes those big ideas actually happen. How and what does that mean to you? And how do you discover that was your lane through all of the experiences you had and then to transition that into real estate? How'd you discover that was your superpower and that was your lane?
I'll be honest, I'm always discovering, I'm always rediscovering who I am. So, but how I got to where I am now, and don't get me wrong, it may change in 3 months, but where I'm at right now, how I got there was, I've been kind of battling, am I an integrator? Am I a visionary? Am I an operator? What's the difference? What's all that mean? And I ended up about a year and a half ago when at the beginning of Owners Club, OG Owners Club, right? We I had a 3 a.m. conversation with Chino, and he was like, Jen, you're a high level operator. And we had this back and forth, back and forth. And it took me about a year to really figure out where I fit in and find kind of my stride, if you will. So um I had a company doing private money lending, and that's just a really tough place to be. I wanted to be an owner, wanted to buy properties and operate properties. And when Jordan came to me and said, I got this RV park under contract, let's go raise money and close it and come on my team. And I said, okay, let's do it. So I helped him raise the money for that RV park, and We closed it in March, and we closed it within from when he told me, let's just do this, to when we closed it was, I think, 2 months or something like that. So then we had to set it all up from scratch. It wasn't online, it wasn't running as an RV park per se. Everything was being done by cash, and so we had to set it all up, all the systems and processes up, all of that. So that was kind of how we got started.
So you pretty much got a hard entry into that of just like, hey, let's do it. And I love that you said yes and jumped into it. What were some of the big lessons that you learned, um, in that whole setup? Not only just the 2 month capital raise, but then the setup of this RV park.
To be honest, the capital raise was way easier than I thought it was going to be. Because we had, the reputation, and we Jordan had everything set up. We had a really nice presentation. We were able to communicate really well to our potential investors, and so we had the foundation set. So really raising the money, I think when you have a good project, raising the money isn't as hard as you think it's going to be. So that wasn't so tough. And but then once we got started, the best laid plans, right? So what our plan was, and where we're at right now is not too far off, but a little bit different than the way we originally were going to operate the park. So, but the biggest thing is, realizing even though that was a small park, I think our biggest challenge was needing somebody on site and coming to that realization. I mean, Jordan was going there every day and spending hours talking to guests. People, they just want to interact at an RV park. They want to interact with the host,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's something that I don't think right now we're going to get away from, is somebody there until the next generation is really out in RV parks. The older generation, they want to talk to somebody. There was a lot of phone answering when you're like, you could just go online and book. And so learning some lessons of hospitality. And that wasn't really me. So we found a wonderful team member to come on and do the hospitality side and come to the park and stay and help us really get those processes running really smoothly. So there was different, first we just threw it all up and was like, okay, at least they can book online. And then we realized, well, we have to specify a lot of different things about each site. Is it a pull-in? Is it a back-in? What side are the connections on? How long is the site? All the different things. And so we realized we had to get each individual site up. And so we had team member come on and take pictures of each individual site and get it all on there properly, those kinds of things. So just more of the details.
That's really cool. And a lot of things, I mean, RV parks are the hot thing in our community right now, right? Everybody's out searching for them. Everybody wants to buy them, but not a lot of people, I have a feeling, have discovered what you all have discovered this past year. Trust me, I watch Jordan's and your stories all the time and his YouTube, and see some of the worst sides of it when people leave and some of the stuff they leave behind, and
Right.
just like it was like, am I sure I want to do this? Am I sure I want to own this? Like, but the human side of it. And I really liked also something you said was the hospitality side. That just wasn't me. So what'd you do? You hired it out. You didn't just be like, well, I'll learn it. No, you leveraged your strengths. You hired out somebody else who's I've met Angela. Angela is definitely one of those people that could sit and talk to people, and some of your other teammates as well. Whereas I think you're better, doing some of those other things, creating the systems and processes and the back end stuff and helping get, the vision accomplished. Um, so yeah, that's awesome. Um, and when we talk about this, a lot of people have big dreams. When we talk about visionaries, but no systems. From your perspective as an integrator, or the molding integrator that your team needs, what are 2 to 3 systems or habits every visionary needs to actually scale and create a business?
Well, I'll actually say in this one, I don't know if you and I have really talked about it. Well, we kind of did actually at dinner the what first night we were there. Um, you need an operating system. You need a battle rhythm, I would call it. When are your meetings? What do your meetings contain? All of those things you need to know, and you need a place to keep track of your tasks. And and then I would say the next thing obviously is, keeping track of your tasks, and then your CRM and keeping track of your leads. So those are kind of, and how those systems work together and apart, and then obviously document filing. So our whole business is basically built on the EOS system, entrepreneurial operating system.
Love it.
And we use for task management, we use ClickUp. And for CRM, most everybody does, we use Go High Level. And then just Google. And then we integrate them with Make is what we use. So there's different people
Hmm.
use Zapier, N88, N8N8, something like that.
Okay.
But we use Make right now anyway. And then just having somebody who can help integrate those systems. So we have a VA that does a lot of it. We could do it ourselves, but man, it's tedious and not something that we want to do. So we've hired
Yeah.
a VA for that. So
Awesome. So definitely lots of technology, it sounds like, and integrating that so that it's not just one person owning that. Well, it's one person owning it, but also everybody's got to understand how to utilize it and communicate through it. And um, but that's great. That's really, really good. Um, very practical, and obviously, I think draws the bridge between the dreamers and the doers, and integrates again the truth behind integrator and visionary was never anything I heard until I read the EOS system book and Rocket Fuel. So I love that. Um, so I want to pivot to outside of RV parks. Share with me a little bit about your Mount Everest and your vision there.
I like to call my Everest a regenerative ecosystem. And so what that is it's not just housing, it's housing and everything that goes along with helping people grow and survive. And so it's a mission to bridge the gap between survival and self-determination so that individuals and families who've been overlooked, displaced, or written off can have a safe place and find stability. And so we do that through not just um, normal apartment buildings. We do that through affordable housing options, and that can look like anything from co-living to RV parks, mobile home parks, um, and even sober living homes, transitional homes. So it just depends on where we're at. We're starting right now with RV parks, with like longer term RV parks, mobile home parks, and co-living right now. So we don't have like sober living in there or anything like that, but that's our goal. And right now we're just starting with the foundation of the housing side, and then we'll be basically layering on other programs. We want to be able to um, partner with other organizations to bring more resources to the people in the homes so that they have a lot more stability. And there's things like that we're seeing is there's transportation issues. So we're looking at starting a leasing program for vehicles. There's issues with, stable employment. So partnering with employers, and there's issues with if someone gets sick, being able to afford their rent. So trying to partner with um, nonprofits that can help with that. So we are building those relationships in the community as well for where sorry, co-living properties are.
That's great. And that was going to be the question I was going to ask because my experience in healthcare was a lot in the nonprofit side and grants and funding and things like that too. And that was the first thing I was going to say is it might still be a little down the road, but I love that you all are already, again, have that vision of where it's going and starting to build those relationships now so they can see what you're building alongside of you. And you never know, they might come along and say, hey, we've got this idea and we've got this funding. Would you be interested in this? It's like, well, Yeah, it'd be great. So I love that again, there's some mission and there's some purpose behind it, not just, okay, this property cash flows, how much does it make us? Like, no, we're building for a bigger purpose. And I love that because so many, again, investors and people in general, okay, what return on investment can this give me? Well, ROI for me a lot of times is return on impact. What kind of impact can you make instead of, just an investment in dollar, but also what impact are you making in your local community? Are you bettering the world we're living in? If so, your investing career is going to go probably a lot smoother. So generally, people are going to, have a little bit better of an outlook on you when you have some humility and, have a higher purpose rather than just how much money can I make from that. And you guys are clearly doing that. So props to you.
Thank you.
So you're involved in some other projects that tackle obviously affordable housing and transitional, housing and living. What keeps you focused on that purpose? Is there anything in your life or anything like that that has kind of drawn this will or this purpose or this mission out of you? Especially when the numbers get tough. What's your why? Why is this your mission? Why is this, Jen's Mount Everest?
Well, I've actually kind of been doing this on my own for a little while. I had a friend move in with her two kids into our home. And I then after that, after she moved out, I found another friend who would have benefited from something like this, ended up losing her children because of not being able to have stable housing. And so I just knew kind of inherently that it was a problem, and then starting to dig into it, knowing that there's a problem. And honestly, it is the women and children. I am a veteran. Obviously, I care about veterans. My family has addiction in their history, also genetics. So recovery is important to me as well. But it for me, eventually, this will be the harder one to do, but it'll be housing women and children and having a place for them. Single parents and children. I mean, women are where my mom was a single mom, right? But being able to help them find stability and be able to thrive is really important to me. So, but really this mission is going to have it's probably going to help each demographic, even aged out youth from the foster system, it's really more about trying to prevent a lot of things that happen that cause homelessness and trying to prevent that before or help them out of it quicker. So,
That's really good, and I'm gonna touch on a parallel. My partner Robert has a very similar Mount Everest as you as far as helping single moms and kids, of course, and he's expanded that to again single parents. But normally you think of single moms, right? That's just kind of so. I love that that's a parallel there, and definitely need to connect you two because I think you could help him draw out some ideas too of kind of the mission there. He knows that that's his Mount Everest. He's not quite sure how to accomplish it yet. So I love that. And also, now what did you say? You just said the prevention of homelessness. Some of the things that cause homelessness, instead of trying to help the homeless and help house the homeless, you're trying to figure out the prevention. And I love that because in healthcare, and I'm going to draw a parallel, and there's a reason. I was in physical therapy. So you think of you rehab somebody after an injury. Well, I always kind of gravitated towards a much smaller niche, which was prehab or before you get injured. How do you, avoid or lower the risk of that? And I love that that's essentially what you guys are doing by trying to work with those people again, whether it's lease options for a car and, like you mentioned, healthcare and all of those things. So I really love that, that's something that you guys are working on and considering doing too. So
yeah. So I have actually we're just filed the paperwork for a nonprofit I'm on the board of, and that's their mission. And their mission is to basically education prior to um having you get a little visitor.
yeah, you're good. You're good. You guys come
That's
with
all
us.
right.
Come on. Go this way, buddy. This way. This way. This way. Thank you.
Yeah, so having the mission to be able to provide affordable housing, and basically educate people because a lot of the problems, it actually stems a lot from mental health. And so being able to try to prevent that, I mean, everything that like drug use and suicide and a lot of the issues that we even have to make a stable income all comes from like mental health issues that we have, that stem from like our childhood growing up or things that have happened to us. And so the foundation is the Goose Foundation. My friend, she lost her son to a fentanyl overdose about 9 weeks ago. And so she started up the foundation here in Butte. And so she already has a grant. She's just got to put in the application. The grant's coming, and that's going to be basically for that education piece. And that's really going to be really great because it's going to help us identify where the need is for the housing that we set up and be able to provide provide those resources. So
Great. Not the story, obviously, but it's great that that's what you guys are doing with that, and that she's, now taking that as, hey, now I need to take action so that this doesn't happen elsewhere and people can get educated. So that's fantastic. Um, Last question, and I'll kind of leave it open-ended. And no, actually, take that back. I'll ask you two more questions. So, work behind the scenes on some bigger projects, not only real estate, but I'm sure some in the military. I'm sure some in your W-2 before this. What's one lesson that surprised you or changed how you approach new opportunities when they come your way?
um I think always, it was interesting actually and I use this all the time. I didn't really understand it, I think, when it was said, but there was a battalion or a brigade commander, I can't even actually remember. We were in a meeting and everybody would always talk about their problems, 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 problems. And he's like, no, those are opportunities. Those are opportunities. Those are so every time that I find myself going, I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but this is what came to mind. Every time I find myself talking about a problem, I'm okay. Where's the opportunity in this? Where this is a hurdle, this isn't a block, this isn't a problem, this is an opportunity to learn and grow. And I'll I think leading up to a very recent situation, I had a hard time seeking out guidance for my problems, trying to just solve them myself, not going out and getting just finding the solutions because who would want to help me? So people are so much further ahead than me. Why would they, why do I'm why do my problem, why would they want to help me with my problem? And I found that's just not true. In fact, a lot of the people are maybe only one or two steps ahead of me and they're excited to help me unlock. They figured it out and they struggled, but man, they are like, oh, but I can just give you this answer right now. And this is going to be like, it's going to, you know, make you sore and you didn't have to go through the pain that I went through. And so I think that's been my biggest surprise is just going, okay, trying to solve those problems as quick as possible and not getting stuck on them and just leveraging your resources that it really is um life changing. It just changes the trajectory really fast. And Pace tells us a lot of things. He puts these little tidbits and he's just more like, just do what I say, don't worry about why. And he's like, it's like build your social media and don't worry about what's on it. Just talk
Do it.
about what you're doing, or he's like build your network, just meet people, just meet people, just meet people. And you're like, and just all the things. And I even texted him the other day, I'm like, oh my gosh, Pace, like I've tried to do everything you've told me and I've done it on a certain scale, and I'm seeing that everything you told me to do has helped me in some way. And so sometimes it's just when you have a leader, just and someone who's trying to help you, just
Just do it.
do what they say.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
they have a reason for telling you it and you don't always need to know the reason why, because that's too much energy. Just do what they tell you to do you know
I like that. I really like that you mentioned turning problems into opportunities. So you learned that perspective shift, but then also again, when we're talking about always having to understand the why and not being afraid to reach out for help. That's a big thing for me too. I've never been super shy about asking for help or asking others if they need my help. So that was is definitely one. But again, the knowing why is always to me. You ask any of my old bosses, teachers, anybody, well, why? But why? And my kids were the same way when they were growing up. But why? Always called my son the question master. And I'm like, huh, I wonder where he gets that from. But it's our way of exploring and knowing and finding out. But sometimes you got to know when to just shut up, take it for what it is, and just do it. It's not going to be pretty right away, but then if you knew the why, you wouldn't go and discover all the other things that are out there for you through that storm. And so good, especially using Pace as that example. I text him all the time and say the same thing, just trying to share with him. And I know you posted a really good example and kind of reminded all of us like, hey, don't forget, he still wants to hear from us. So I love that. It was very, very good. So final question I like to end with is podcast is called Thinking Outside the Bank. So not necessarily thinking outside the box, but what's one time in your life that you've had to get really creative or think outside the box when life has kind of thrown you a challenge or a curveball or a twist when maybe you didn't see coming and you had to, again, think creatively and act creatively to solve the problem?
Yeah, this property in Chicago that I have is definitely has been a challenge. And what happened was I started on this project as a sponsor and I sponsored a loan and it didn't go well. And we'll just say we had to come up with a very creative solution to get it refinanced and get it basically going again. And we're still in the middle of some of that restructure, but that took partners, that took other partners, because if anybody knows about refinancing a loan that isn't going well, that has had a bad history, you can't just go refinance a loan that's had a bad history. So how do you bring in other partners or bring in other resources to, and I say partner, I mean, he's my I knew him before I sold the property to him, but I sold the property to him, and that was the partnership was like, hey, I'm gonna sell this property to you at a good price, but that way it works out for everybody, right? And
Yeah,
so um I think that's the biggest thing is just trying to think creatively and having just enough knowledge to ask the right questions and structure deals just the right way so that you can solve problems that are very challenging. So
it's good.
that,
Always thinking creatively. I love
yeah.
it. And truthfully, I think Pace is really good about saying that too, right? Is, there's no problem we can't solve. You just haven't figured out the answer yet. Like it may seem difficult. It may not seem right there, right in front of you, but doesn't necessarily mean that you can't find the answer. You just haven't found the answer yet or think creatively or who's that other person that can help you solve it, right? Not always how, but who. So that is really, really good, Jen. How can people find you? How can they follow along with your journey? How can they find your buy box? Now's your time to give out any resources, and I can plug all of these in the show notes when we post it as well.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram as this is what I always forget. I'm on Instagram as the Jen Breitbach and on um YouTube as the Jennifer Breitbach. Still building my YouTube channel, but somebody way in the future might see this. And then my buy box is at jenniferbrightbaugh.com.
Okay,
Still building that out, but there is a website there and everything. And so hopefully in the future when people come and see this, that it'll be all built out good and
absolutely.
solid. If somebody watches this really, really close to now, and you need to see our buy box, you can go to Jordan Reyes. He's my partner, jordanreyes.me, and see a much more complete buy box. But um, yeah.
Awesome. I'll plug all of those. I'll have you send them to me and we'll plug them all below. So that way, as things evolve, things change, people see this 6 months, a year in the future, they can come follow you and see both yours and Jordan's buy boxes and see what you guys are up to and how this has evolved and how this machine has grown. So I love it.
So
Thank you so much, Jen, for being on here and kind of sharing a little bit of really what it takes to be an integrator and, harness that superpower and how it creates performance in real estate. So can't wait to continue to see what you all have going on, learn about them, visit your parks, interact with you, and all the amazing things to come. So thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Trevor.
Absolutely.